I hope someone else has the cheat sheet open to help move the meeting along with all the different motions. A little bit different when we're not,
Yeah,
in person.
Yeah,
Oh,
it is.
I have one. So.
Matt, it's 7 o'clock. Just let me know when we should start the meeting. And is Dan supposed to be here? Do you know?
Yeah, I believe so. I just texted him. I would just wait one more minute for him just for
Sure.
technical issues.
Yep.
Matt, is that cheat sheet that Paul refers to in our packet? Because I know the motions are in each section, but I don't see the full thing.
Cheat sheet and draft minutes. It is in the OneDrive. I can check the Dropbox. It's possible that maybe it didn't get converted over.
I saw.
Yeah, I'm looking at the Dropbox and I don't.
Yeah, it's
see it.
definitely in the OneDrive. I just opened it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I got it from there.
Hey, Dan. All right, I see. Yep, and Dan is on now.
Excellent.
I'll drop it into
Thanks.
the Dropbox for you, Sean. Yeah, and Dan is with us.
Just tell me when we're
Recording
ready to
in
go.
progress.
Okay, we are ready whenever you are, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you very much, Matt. It's 7:01, February 23rd, 2026. A Zoom only meeting of the select board, given what it's about 2 feet of snow outside. And before we start, I'm going to give a public service announcement, which is that I don't know if you can tell from the Zoom, but I have lots of stuff going on here. And the public service announcement is everyone go to their dermatologist after a certain age, at least yearly, for skin checks, because one can have precancerous stuff, which is if you're a pasty, pale skinned person like myself, you're a great danger for it. So that's my public service announcement. Okay, moving on from that, we are going to start with public comment, if any. And Matt, do we have anyone who's present online who's got their? I would suggest you raise your hand, and then I'll
Sure.
have the timer going. And since we're not in person, I can time people myself.
Sure. We have three in the order, or four now in the order they raised their hands. If you'd like me to.
Sure. Why don't we do that? And yeah, that'd be great.
So Lethea Yates was first.
Hello, Alethea Yates, 37 Shawshene Road. I don't have any comment as such. I just want to say that I am on the line tonight in case there's any business concerning the Historic Preservation Commission. Thanks.
That's great. Thank you, Lee. Okay. Who else, Matt?
Yep. Next, I have Allison Jimerson.
Very good.
Hey, can you guys hear me?
We can. So,
Okay,
Allison, if you
perfect.
just give who you are, your address, and then we'll give you 3 minutes uninterrupted.
Okay, great. Allison Jimerson, 20 Caribou Street. And I just wanted to provide some comment about the charter amendment. First, I want to premise my comment with the notion that it's been a bit disappointing that public discussion of the charter amendment has been dismissed as ridiculous and that perhaps passionate viewpoints have been labeled as rude by public officials. And I do hope that future discussions can remain respectful and focused on the substance of the issue. But moving to the substance of the issues, it's my understanding that there's several questions that remain unresolved, and I believe that these answers could truly resolve any vagueness or confusion around this charter amendment. So first, I think, there are some real questions. Sorry, I'm just trying to read my notes about what the problem to resolve, what the problem that this amendment is meant to resolve. And so if the goal is to align other elected boards with the Board of Assessors, I'm just kind of curious why this alignment is necessary and what public benefit it would create. If the concern is that the elected boards lack management experience comparable to a town manager, I'm curious what evidence supports that conclusion, and can we confidently state that the board members lack relevant experience or cannot handle issues that arise? If the worry is liability from different boards, handling matters differently, I'm curious what evidence shows such liability exists. And if the proposal follows practices of other towns, have we compared important differences of these towns? For example, other towns don't have elected library boards. And then moving on to whether the amendment is actually necessary. I've heard that town council believes that the authority is already vested in the town manager. So I guess if so, why did that same law firm give different advice recently regarding the Board of Assessors? It's my understanding that library trustees reported being denied access to town council to clarify this. Why hasn't that conflict been resolved? Why is there confusion about how the library differs from other boards when not only our bylaws vest appointment authority in the trustees, but there are real censorship concerns specific to the library. While some may see these concerns about consolidation of power and potential censorship as unlikely, I think recent public debates about literature in our region, particularly with respect to schools, show that these concerns are not unfounded. And I ask that these questions be answered openly and respectfully so that the community can evaluate the amendment on the facts. And I hope the discussion models the thoughtful and civil engagement we all want for this town. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Allison. Who else is online, Matt?
Next is Emily Mitchell. And
Emily, you know how this goes, so it's all yours.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
We can.
Emily Mitchell, 4 Heritage Drive. I'm speaking in support of the proposed edits to the charter amendment for Article 5.1B regarding the library director and library employee positions, which the library trustees have put forth. These edits provide important clarification, including the citation of Mass General Law for who is responsible for what when it comes to the Bedford Free Public Library. From the start of this round of the Charter and Bylaw review process, the Select Board has stated multiple times that they will not put forward any charter or bylaw changes regarding the library that the trustees do not approve. And yet, we are still winding our way through this language. So I urge the Select Board to accept the trustees' proposal and put this to bed. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Emily. Anyone else, Matt?
Yep. Next we have B. Bronckhurst. All right, allowed to talk.
B, whenever you're ready, you know the drill. Go ahead.
Hi, yeah, can you hear me okay?
I can.
Excellent. Thanks. So happy that you're running this meeting despite the snow. It was great. Just really one quick question. I don't know, I just couldn't find the agenda. So just was curious when the charter amendments would be discussed in your meeting.
I would, Matt, do we
Yeah.
have,
It's
7:40.
estimated for about 7:40 currently.
Okay,
So not till quite a bit later.
thanks. But was it in the packet? I just didn't go through all of it, or?
Yep. Yeah, it's in the packet online.
Okay, so it's obviously not in the first 100 pages or so. Okay,
Oh.
I will through it. Thanks.
okay, thank you, B.
No problem.
Anyone else, Matt?
Hi. I think Matt, he promoted me. I think he's muted though. So this is
Oh,
Padma Chowdhury.
sorry.
That's okay. This is Padma Chowdhury at 38 Battle Flag Road.
Okay,
I am chair of the library trustees and speaking on their behalf tonight. And so I think I don't know if it makes more sense for us to present at the point of discussion where we're discussing the amendment, but I'll be here if there are any questions at that time. But just quickly, the trustees have on record questioned the town council's most recent interpretation of the charter from last year, which conflicted with that firm's own prior opinion. I don't think we've gotten a satisfactory response to why there was that conflict. But that said, if we're not going to go back and reconcile that conflicting town council opinion, then the library trustees respectfully request that the edits we propose to section 5.1B at page 32 of tonight's packet be approved.
okay, thank you, Padma. Anyone else, Matt?
No one else with a hand raised at the moment.
Okay, and there will be other bites at the apple when we're in the public hearing section of the obvious topic that is of interest. Correct, Matt?
Correct.
Okay, so next we're moving on to public hearings related to Eversource. Do we have a motion?
I move the open and public hearing for the Eversource business.
Second.
I'll go down the roll call. Let me just hold on a second. Paul is in favor. Dan,
Yes.
Terrence,
Yes.
Sean,
Yes.
and Bopa.
Yes.
Okay, it's so open. What do you got for us, Matt?
Great. So we have two public hearings this evening for grants of location. We do have Joanne Calendar on the line, and David Manugian, I believe, is on with us as well, but I'm not seeing. Oh, he's on his Bedford Zoom 3. All right. I was going to ask to raise your hand, David. And so we have David Manugian as well. David, would you like to start with Weber Ave, and then we'll switch to Joanne to see if she has any additional comments?
Sounds good. Thank you, Matt. Yes, David Manugian, Public Works Director. So 10 Weber Ave is a residential redevelopment. Eversource has requested a grant of location for the address. Public Works has reviewed the application. We wanted to note no trees are being impacted in the right of way, and so we recommend approval.
Okay, are there any, before I go to the public, are there any questions from the board?
I'm just wondering the time that they would do this. I assume as soon as it's warm enough.
I'll defer to Joanne on that.
So yeah, I mean, it's really the town. Whenever you tell us it's okay to do it, that's when we'll do it.
When does the moratorium end, Matt or David?
So roads will open after the long weekend of Patriots Day weekend. So I think it's middle of April.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else with the question? Terrence, do you have any?
No.
Sean, Bopa?
No.
Okay. Any questions from the public? Please raise your hand and Matt will promote you.
I am not seeing anyone on for public comment at the moment.
Okay. I think we're ready for a motion. Is that fair, Matt, to take the motion?
Yeah, we can make a motion to close the public hearing if no one raises their hand.
Do you want to do both at the same, are they two separate public hearings, or can we do both under one, Matt?
Yeah, I would do two separate just in case.
I move that we close the public hearing for Weber Avenue.
Okay, Paul is in favor. Dan?
Yes.
Oh, thank you for the second. Terry?
Yes.
Bopa?
Aye.
Sean?
Yes.
Okay. Any further comment from the board before seeing if anyone wants to make a motion?
All right, I got it.
Hearing, okay, go ahead, make the motion.
I move the town approve the petition to construct the utility as described and shown on the order and plans dated August 20th, 2025 for 10 Weber Avenue on behalf of NStar Electric Company, DBA Eversource Energy.
Okay, do we have a second? There was a second by Sean. Paul is in favor. Terry?
Yes.
Sean?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
Bopa?
Aye.
Okay, excellent. Anyone want to open the public hearing again for the second portion?
I move we open the public hearing for 315 South Road.
Second.
Seconded by
Actually,
Sean. Paul is in
just
favor.
Point of order, isn't it technically continuing the public hearing? I don't know if
Yes,
that
it
matters.
is.
Yeah.
It certainly is.
Okay,
Okay, so moved by Dan, I take it, and
and I'll
seconded
second that.
as such by Sean. Thank you, Sean. Paul is in favor of that astutely corrected motion. Terry?
Yes.
Sean?
Yes.
Bopa?
Aye.
Dan?
Yes.
Okay. What do we have, Matt, for this?
Great. David, do you want to take this off?
Sure. Thank you. So in this case, it is for 315 South Road. It's a case where it came to our attention that work was done by the contractor in the town's right of way, unbeknownst to Eversource or to the town. And so we need some time to investigate what was done because we think there may have been some damage to some town trees. And so in order to do that, we'd like that this hearing is opened, but then continued to a date certain so that it gives us time to try to resolve the issues. So we've provided a recommendation here that this public hearing be continued to April 13th at 7 p.m. Joanne, anything you want to add?
No, we received your email informing us of that decision, and we were fine with that.
Okay. Any questions from board members?
Yeah, I have a question, Paul.
Please, Sean.
So I know that in this case you don't know the extent of the damage because there's snow out there and such, but it's kind of, disappointing to read something that this is going on, and I'm just wondering, in a general sense, what happens when a contractor does something like they're not supposed to do and it causes damage?
Absolutely. I have talked with the town manager a little bit about it. To start, we want to assess what potential damage was done. I feel we have the right to have them remove their infrastructure from the town's right of way and get permission properly. We did discuss the possibility that certainly we don't want any remediation to further impact town trees. So, we're also looking at financial penalties as well. We don't want to encourage or reward anyone for doing work without going through the proper process. I will echo Joanne's point that Eversource was not aware that this work was being done, so it was a surprise to them as well. So absolutely, Sean, we don't condone this type of activity, and so we want to investigate fully. With a couple feet of snow on the ground, we can't even start really to clearly investigate. So Matt and I spoke, and really we said April 13th because with a little bit of luck, the snow will be gone by then and we'll be able to start to look at this, but we may need to continue it further to resolve this. Matt,
thank
anything you want to add? Yeah.
No, that was a great summary, David.
Okay, any other questions from the board? Okay, any from the public, Matt? The public may speak now.
All right, there are no hands raised.
Okay, at this point, then I'd entertain a motion to close.
Well, we're going to move to continue.
Actually-
We're going to move to continue, correct?
Oh, I beg your pardon.
Continue.
I'm sorry. Thank you. Once
All
again,
right,
thank
so
you.
I move the town continue the public hearing for the proposed NSTAR Eversource grant at 315 South Road until April 13th at 7 p.m.
I'll second that.
Okay, Paul is in favor. Dan,
Yes.
Sean,
Yes.
Terry,
Yes.
Bopa.
Aye.
Okay, so it is continued.
Look at us.
Thank you.
Moving.
Thank you so much.
Mhm.
Oh,
Joanne.
thank
thank you.
you.
Have
Thank
a good
you.
night.
As always. Yeah, you as well. Okay. Moving on to the next item, we are going to discuss a request to change the name of the Disability Commission, I guess, to the Commission on Disability. Matt, is there anyone here to speak on that, or are you going to describe this?
Sure.
first?
I don't see anyone from the committee, but Terrence and I both attend pretty much all their meetings. Terrence as the liaison from the board and myself as the town manager. So Terrence, did you want to speak on this briefly, or did you want me to?
Sure, I'll just speak briefly. This name change just recognizes a sort of change in the understanding on how these commissions are named, rather than have it be called the Disability Commission, where disability is used as an adjective. This is sort of in keeping with what other commissions are doing, and it's really just a basic change from calling it Disability Commission to Commission on Disability. So just seems like a no-brainer, and it sort of brings us up to speed with what's going on in the disability community.
Excellent. Thank you, Terry. Does any board member wish to speak on this? Because I would say I am fully in favor of accepting the request to change the name to the Commission on Disability. So absent anyone else wanting to speak some more on it, I would take a motion.
I move that the select board
Oh.
change the name.
Oh,
Go
go.
ahead.
I'm sorry. Keep going, Terry.
Okay. I move that the select board change the name of Disability Commission to the Commission on Disability.
Second.
Okay. And did someone actually want to comment more on it, or shall I go ahead and take the vote? Okay, I'll take the vote. Paul is a yes. We'll go to Terry on this one.
Yes.
Bopa,
Aye.
Dan,
Yes.
Sean,
Aye.
There you go. It passes. Matt, we're gonna have a presentation from Matt Porter, I think.
Yes.
Is Matt
All right.
ready to go?
I just promoted him.
Excellent. Matt, welcome. Do you want to just introduce yourself and launch right in?
Hello, everybody. Matt Porter, 22 Brooksby Road, and I'm here in my capacity as chair of the Community Media Committee. I've got two things on my agenda. Item one is to share the results of our meeting as far as the warrant is concerned and the approval of the BCAP budget. So I will read that first, and then I just have two quick slides on the PEG Access Working Group. But just to start, at our meeting, January 28th, 2026, the Community Media Committee reviewed the budget proposed by Bedford Community Access Television, also known as BCAT, for continued operation of the Community Access Television Studio and the local access channels on the town's cable television providers. At the January meeting, the board voted to recommend to the select board that $303,286 be included in the FY 2027 town budget to support BCAT, also known as Bedford TVs. Of that total, $252,536 is designated for BCAT operating expenses. $35,000 goes to the town for the rent of studio space in Old Town Hall, and there is $15,750 in capital expenditures for production equipment to be used by BCAT. This equipment will be used to help make sure that captions are provided on the broadcast channel as per ADA requirements. This recommendation is contingent on sufficient revenue in the PEG Access Special Revenue Fund from the cable TV providers. At our meeting on January 28th, the consensus of the committee was that revenue forecasting should come from the Finance Committee, as that is what has happened in previous years. However, the committee will be reviewing finances from the special revenue account going forward, and the Finance Committee can continue to do what they do. It's important for our deliberations on future budgets as we sort of come to periods where there may not be as much money in the fund as there has been in the past. More on that in a minute. The overall request represents an increase of 4.2% from the fiscal 2026 budget. This allocation for the operating expenses is increased by 3%, driven primarily by salary and insurance adjustments, some of which offset by increases in class revenues paid by BCAT. The capital expenditure budget is a 44.9% increase. And again, though, it is supporting a system that will be required by ADA regulations on government programming starting in April 2027. So it's a bit expensive this year, but it's necessary. That is the BCAT FY 2027 budget. If I take questions on that first before I go to my second part.
I'll ask a question, and this is, I'm embarrassed to say I should know this. The funding from this comes from the cable companies, right? This isn't tax levy spending, is it?
Not now, but more on that situation. But right now, there should be sufficient money in the fund to fund the BCAP budget.
Okay. All right.
I leave the Finance Committee to make sure and ensure, because it is a bit confusing. I will tell you right now, as someone who works with the SRA, because the money comes in bit by bit and changes based on the amount of cable subscribers in the town, it's very hard to nail down.
So Matt, can I stop you for a second? SRA stands for
Special Revenue Account, I believe.
Oh, okay. All right. And then I have a question actually for the town manager, which is Matt is saying the numbers come from the Finance Committee, but is that really behind the curtains coming from the town accountant, town finance folks?
Yes.
It is. Okay. All right. Not trying to slam the Finance Committee, but I just want to, make sure that what is.
The data, all the data on the SRA comes from the town.
I understood. Got it, Matt. Okay. Before you go into the second part, you invited questions. So I'll see if anyone else on the board has a question. Terry, do you have any?
Just one. Matt, it's my understanding that the contribution from the cable companies are going down year after year because cable subscribers are going down. Is that correct?
Yes. The quirk of the funding of our cable access stations across the state is that it comes out of a fee for cable TV. as people have cut their cords. I myself, for example, have YouTube TV, which does not count. I do not pay a fee that goes into supporting Bedford TV. Like this is an ongoing problem. Cable, like unless you have a subscription to Comcast or Verizon cable, you do not pay to support Bedford TV, and this will be in more detail in just a few minutes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I guess
anything else, Terry?
my quick follow-up question is, what percentage does it go down each year, or have you tracked that?
I will, can I say in just a moment, we'll kind of look at the numbers. It's
Sure.
hard to say. I will say we also got an increase in the fee. So we've gotten a jump a little bit because we're charging more. We're now instead of 4%, 5% fee. But the cable subscribers are still going down at a rate that's probably not good in the next 5-10 years.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Terry. And I think Sean definitely had a question.
Yeah, and you can let me know if this is going to come up later, but I was wondering, other than the cable TV subscription fees, if there's other sources of revenue, like if there's been a trial of having sponsorships or advertisements, something like that.
Advertising, I believe, is difficult because of like legal what can be an advertisement. I will tell you that Bedford TV, the class revenue has gone up. It's not enough to pay for Bedford TV, but it's also not nothing. In the budget that we got, for example, 2026, the revenue from kids classes was 9,000. They're projecting 13,500. So that's 5% of the budget in classes. So that's great. They have minimal profits on also recording and sending. But unfortunately, due to laws regarding advertisements and sponsorships, I think it's just very hard to get anything expensive. Also, Bedford TV's market is very small, so the value of any ad on Bedford TV is low.
Okay, thank you.
And anyone else on the board, questions on this piece of it so far?
If Brian wants to add anything to advertising that I haven't mentioned, by the way, Brian from Bedford TV is there. I feel free because he probably knows more about it than I do.
That was pretty spot on. We're not allowed to run ads per se. We have community partners, and our income from that actually has gone up year after year as well. But yes, you asked about the amount that cable revenues have declined. It's been about 8% as far as the total number of subscribers. Again, the revenues, it's a little harder to track because as the subscribers go down, our percentage has gone up. Also, Verizon and Comcast see those numbers going down, and they make people pay more money for the people that are still subscribed. So it's a little hard to track the exact ins and outs of that special revenue account. Again, as Matt Porter was saying, that's something that we'd have to talk more with the finance committee, with kind of the folks in the back end there at the town hall. That are really seeing the money come in and out of that account. So, yeah, that's sort of the synopsis on that.
As the new accountant or finance person for the town comes online, it is the community media committee's hope to be more active on tracking the special revenue account now that it's not so big. Like it used to be that there was enough money in there and Brian's budget was small that like we never had to worry. But now we're getting into the point where Brian's small budget is actually now eclipsing the money that's coming in. And again, I'll have more on that in a minute.
Yeah, Matt, I do think that is on the radar screen for folks. I don't, so yeah. And I'm sorry, anyone else, Bopa or Sean, were you done?
I'm done. Yes, thank you.
Yeah, Bopa, anything?
Nope, I'm all set.
Dan? I guess no with
All
Dan. So, am I correct, Dan? You good?
Correct.
Okay, part two.
Yeah, all
Matt.
right. If someone can bring the slide up, thank you. So as we've been discussing, revenues are going down, budgets are ever increasing. So a couple of years ago or a year and a half ago, we started this PEG Access Working Group, PEG standing for Public Education and Government. That's Access Television, that's the formal name. And the working group has been designed to try to figure out how to solve this problem that's oncoming. I will mention there's always legislation out there that the state has that will promise to bring in some revenue. I am kind of suspect. So far, nothing has made it all the way, but I would be remiss not to mention that there are 3 current bills, H91, H106, S41, currently in the Ways and Means Committee, which is the furthest these bills have ever gotten. And this would assess fees on streaming companies to support PEG access stations in Massachusetts. But it would likely, even if the legislation were to pass, it would not eliminate the funding shortfall entirely. Most likely. I also just have personally, I find it hard, like the streaming companies, and then you might have people paying double fees by having cable television and Netflix. So there's a lot of questions for me about whether this legislation can make it, but I would be remiss not to mention that it has made it to the Ways and Means Committee, furthest it's ever been. There's a lot of advocacy on the PEG statewide front to get some sort of additional revenue in, because every PEG access station in the state is dealing with the same problems we are. Currently, this is what's being offered. So that is happening. But we are not going to just sit by and wait for legislation to save us. We have brought new members to the working group now from the School and Finance Committee. We've also brought Brian Hebert to the group, the PEG working group. And that is because we've started to kind of talk about a potential solution that would be a possible down the road, sometimes next 2 to 5 years, where BCAP may have to go from being an independent entity to potentially be a nonprofit, or from an independent entity, sorry, to being part of the town. This would result in savings just right off the bat. That $35,000 in rent that BCAP pays would go away. Then there would be a lot of saved costs potentially in employments. We're getting into the details of exactly how much savings there would be and what it would be, but that's the main possible solution we're looking at. And the working group is also trying to assess the potential time we have before the special revenue account surplus is exhausted. We do not have good numbers on this, but next slide. These are the best numbers I can show you as of right now, and this is from Matt Hansen, a document he gave me for our last meeting, and I just kind of put it into this table. If you notice, starting in FY25 and just kind of moving on, the expenses are outnumbering the revenue we're getting in. Everything after FY26 is projected. Everything in italics is projected. So like we just decided, let's project that the revenue continues to go down by 10,000 each year. And you'll notice we projected expenses going up by about 3-4% each year, which is kind of on par with salaries. And most of Bedford TV's costs are just the 1 or 2 salaried employees, and like that's most of the cost, besides the $35,000 in rent. And you can see down in the bottom, the approximate, this is where it gets a little funny, because knowing exactly what's in the SRA, FY26 we estimate that there was 210,000, and then after FY26 about 169, and then you can see that number every year, 169. Now there's only 116,000. FY28, there's now only 48,000 left. And then FY29 and FY30, we get into the point where we're running into the red. And that is where decisions will have to be made, which is, do we try to get Bedford TV's already very string budget lower to not get in the red? Or is that when we have to start thinking about really, really big solutions? And the one that so far that seems most plausible and has been done in other towns, including Chelmsford, which would be merging Bedford TV into the town to save costs for Bedford TV, and then keep the revenue fund more soluble. So that is the situation we're looking at. And that's, like, again, all the italics are estimates and projections. I wouldn't say this is the worst case scenario. I'd say this is probably the middle case scenario. So I'm happy to answer questions on this table or anything else.
One thing I did want to mention quickly too is I'd be curious as to, I know Matt, you said that Matt got these numbers from the town as well. I'd be curious as to kind of see where all these numbers came from, because I know from my running the budget every year, our expenses in FY24 versus FY25, there you see a nearly $60,000 increase in expenses. I'm not sure where those numbers are coming from because I was looking back at our annual reports and things like that. I don't remember having nearly a $60,000 increase in our expenses that year. So I'm curious as to the accuracy of all of these numbers. Obviously, projecting forward, we are at a deficit every year from what we're bringing in
So-
from revenues and what we're spending in expenses. I'm
So,
just not
Brian, let
sure
me jump in.
exactly 100% the accuracy of all of these numbers in this graph.
So, Brian, let me jump in. Point taken. For tonight, I don't think we have to, and I'm not saying you're suggesting this, but for tonight, I don't think we're going to scrub the numbers.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, no, I know you weren't I don't think you were suggesting that. But let me ask if I have the grand takeaway. No matter how you slice it, merger in or some other mechanism, it looks like somewhere down the road, maybe in the nearer future versus the far off future, if we want to continue to have the BCAT as it is, it might have to be subsidized by the town. I mean, that's kind of the long and short of it, right? We don't have to make this decision tonight, but at some point, if that's what the powers that be want, we should try to acclimate the town and kind of sell that. Or if we don't like it, go for that too. But that's essentially what it is, correct?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. We are, whether these numbers are 100% accurate or not, we are at a deficit every year from what's coming in from cable funds and what we are spending on, as Matt said, 80% of our salary, 80% of our budget is salaries. So it's, there's not a lot of wiggle room outside of fewer employees.
And Matt, was that somewhat fairly stated the way I put it? Would you agree?
Yeah, and I would say, this is the point of the working group. Like, I'm not bringing this to you to say solve it, but I wanted to let you know this is kind of where we are with the working group. We're kind of getting a real sense of, and as I mentioned, we're trying to assess the actual numbers. These are not the best numbers for sure, but these are the best numbers I've gotten so far.
Got it.
And the PEG working group will continue the next few months, continue to try to devise what are the solutions, and we'll bring more updates to you guys when we have it. But I wanted to give you a sense of that. I think the cliff is much closer than maybe we thought it was last year.
Okay.
I think it's more imminent.
Yep. So I'm going to flip it to my board if they want to make any comments or questions. But I will say thank you both to you, Matt, and to Brian. I think we got the message. This is very clear. And thank you for your efforts. I know it takes energy and dedication. So for me, thank you. With that, I'll go to the board. Start with Sean if you have any questions or comments.
No, I don't have any questions. I mean, this was pretty clearly presented. So thanks for laying out the way the situation is.
Got it. Bopa.
Nope.
Dan.
Yeah, I would say that I've been involved with Bedford TV for 11 years. This was always coming. And I would just say that if you look at the town organizations that really serve the town well, Bedford TV is an absolute treasure of this town, gives us so much help, so much transparency, so many person hours of recordings for us. They are an asset that are absolutely worth saving. And I think we always did this where it was going to go. And when the time comes, I'll certainly be in support of the merger. So keep up the good work, guys. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Dan. Terry, anything from you? I'll take silence as he's happy with what we've said so far. So
I said I have nothing, but thank you, Brian.
Thank you, Terry. Sorry, I missed that.
Mute. Sorry about
Okay. All right. Very good. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Brian. Feel free to stick around should you so desire. Okay. And I don't think there's any motion that was requested. Let me go to just hold on, everyone. Aha. We have a public hearing starting in 1 minute. Matt, do we have to wait till the clock strikes 7:40 before we open it?
No, we times we have listed on our agenda times are approximate. I believe the public hearing notice said 7 o'clock. So that was just our estimated time.
Okay, so then do we have a motion to open the public hearing?
I move to open the public hearing for the general bylaw and charter amendments.
Second.
Okay, Paul votes yes. Sean?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
Bopa?
Aye.
And Terry?
Yes.
Okay, so let's start with board comment and questions. I think I'll start. I think the one that obviously is of great interest is recommendations about potential amendments to the town manager's powers. I can start explaining what the Charter and Bylaw Committee recommended, some suggestions that we would that I would recommend, that I've talked about with town manager, and then another proposal put forward by the library trustees that goes further, or is, I should say, different from the one put forward by the Charter and Bylaw. Matt, do you mind? Can I, if I don't want to put you on the spot because I could try to do it, but could you, do you mind? Do you have it in front of you, the Charter and Bylaw recommendation?
Yes, so the current proposed language from the committee. Yep, I have that, and then I have the request of the library as well, but I can pull up the draft warrant and share that right now.
Thank you, Matt.
Scrolling
Sorry,
down.
I didn't mean to spring that on you.
Yep, no, I have it
But
here.
I'm happy to speak to it. This will help me.
Yeah. Just give me one moment. Here we go. Okay. Let's see if I can just get my share button working again. Share screen. Here we go. Let me know. Can everyone see this?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. So I guess I can speak to it now, Matt. So the Charter and Bylaw Review thought it prudent to recommend that the charter be amended to have the town manager's authorities on hiring changed to that it's made in consultation with the different boards being assessors, planning, and Board of Health. And did I get it? Yeah, that's it. And that both the library trustees and the schools are in charge of hiring their library director and the school superintendent without the town manager's input. Likewise, they recommended for supervision. There were some amendments to supervision, which were meant for the assessors, planning, and Board of Health to modified from the town manager supervises the positions that report that deal with those different boards, to make sure to exclude policy kinds of issues. So the town manager would most clearly not be able to supervise the planning director with policy direction from the planning board, et cetera, right? Or for the Board of Health. And then finally, they decided to leave for those three, assessors, planning, and Board of Health, that it's the town manager who terminates the positions, that the planning director, the town assessor, and I can't remember Heidi's title ever, but Heidi's position.
Director of Health and Human Services.
Yeah, and I apologize. That's a mouthful for me. And but all those powers otherwise, the hire, supervise, and terminate would remain with the schools and with the library trustees for the library director and the school superintendent. The do you want to put up, can you, Matt, the recommended changes by the library trustees? And then I will allow them to, obviously it's town, it's a public hearing. They'll definitely get to speak to it, but can you thought there?
Yep. So can everyone see the one that's redlined now? And just Paul, I wonder if before we jump into this, do we want to just quickly, do you want to brief the board on how our conversation with the Board of Health went?
I think that would be a better way, more logical. Thank you. So Matt and I met with the Board of Health, and it was Matt agreed that it would be, here's the thing is, the idea behind this is to continue with good governance. If one believes good governance is the professional management of the town manager, right? That's just very loosely speaking. And in terms of, but where the Board of Health had a problem is, and they can speak for themselves, B is here, is they wanted in on the hiring, not just consulting on who might Heidi's position be, but they want some of that legal authority. They were okay to share that legal authority with Matt, right? The supervision piece, basically, we could leave it just supervise. The town manager supervises that position, but they seem to be, again, they'll speak for themselves maybe tonight, okay with the really circumscribing clearly the town manager's what the town manager can and cannot supervise with respect to, right? And it seems to me the only thing that's left over for the town manager to supervise for those employees is HR kinds of things. And Matt, is that a fair statement?
Yeah, correct. Yep.
Okay. And we explicitly talked about the firing piece, and the town manager felt it was very important that the town manager have that authority solely, and he can speak to that. I'm not going to try to regurgitate what he said. And my belief is that the Board of Health was okay with that because they thought it was best left with the town manager. I know the Board of Health can speak later, but Matt, do you think that was a fair description of what the Board of Health seemed to be okay with?
Yes, no, and so just to clarify again, to summarize, the sentence here where it says the appointment of department heads is subject to the approval of the select board. The Board of Health essentially suggested that, except for the Health and Human Services director, it would be the health director, and then they suggested for planning an access. I think when Paul and I talked, it would make sense to have that be consistent with the others as well. So
I think that's accurate.
Yeah.
By the way, they did not take a vote at least that night. So this was our discussion with them, but Matt and I took the direction from them. So
yeah, so just trying to clarify, for the other board members there, if you were trying to think where this would fit in and how it would be written, it would essentially be the same language, except for the department head of those boards, they would have the appointment would be subject to their approval.
Correct.
Yeah. No, so that's
that. So that's what the Board of Health seem to be okay with. And I myself think that should we I'll just spit it out. I like the Board of Health model. The town manager, I think, can very happily share the hiring decision. I think the supervision piece is very circumscribed to keep the town manager out of the policy-making business. And then thirdly, I think it's wise to leave the firing for all of these, with the exception of the superintendent of schools, with the town manager for various reasons we can talk about later. And so that's something I'd like to talk to you, the board, about in a little bit. But so I'm ready to move on then, Matt. So that's what we'll call it the Mortensen proposal. Although I don't want to personalize it as in it's the Mortensen proposal. That's a very poor way to put it. Matt, should we go to the library now? Are we ready to move on?
Yes. Can everyone see the screen again with the red lines?
Yes.
Okay.
And I don't think we could ask Padma, the chair of the library trustees, if she wants to explain it. I don't know if I can do it justice, or do you want to try, Matt? And then we could let Padma speak and then go back to just the select board. What do you think?
Yep. No, I'm promoting her now.
I'm assuming she's okay talking about it.
Hi
Okay.
there. Sorry.
Oh, excellent. Padma, do you mind speaking to this?
Yeah, I'm sorry, it kicked me out for a minute, so I'm not
Oops.
sure what I missed
There you go.
exactly. But so this is the proposed edits to the proposal that was approved by the Charter and Bylaw Committee in a 4-1 vote. So we had some additional clarifying amendments, and you can't see, but the comment bubbles say where the language kind of came from. But so we can walk through them one by one. So the employees language, I moved to at the after library director. So it says school department, library director, and their respective employees in keeping with MGL Part 1, Title 12, Education. That's where both the school and the library are statutorily given authority in Mass General laws. So I referenced that section. And so the idea, and so just to, because I did hear a question about this before. So it's not that this the library trustees will be appointing all of the employees of the library director. It's just that the town manager's authority is limited from the school department, the library director, and their respective employees. That's what this sentence is saying. The next sentence, so we just removed the department heads because that had not been a previously defined term anywhere in the charter. So we just said the appointment of such town officers. Also, because when you say department heads without saying such department heads, it looks like there could potentially be a conflict where we're saying we're excluding school department and library director, and then the next sentence seems like a potential conflict. So we just said such town officers is subject to the approval of the select board. And for departments which an elected board provides policy direction, the appointment of such department heads by the town manager shall be made subject to the approval of the respective elected board. And it's not showing right now, but so the first two changes that I had made were in line with a couple of public comments that were made at the last select board hearing when we discussed this. And then I think it was the last hearing, forgive me if it's the one before that. And then the subject to the approval of language was from the Board of Health hearing that I had also listened to as well. And so that was, I know Matt had referenced the previous sentence, but this is where I thought it was in conjunction with the only after consultation with language. So I thought this is where the Board of Health was speaking to, but I will let them speak for themselves.
Yeah, no, to be clear, it would work in either sentence. Yeah, Padma, I agree. That's fine.
So, Padma, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
I don't see, I can see why the schools are different. They have the biggest budget. They are able to appoint their own counsel, and I think they have their own HR department, right? To handle employee issues. So I can see, in my mind, I see why they're separate, but I don't see why the library's more special than the tax assessors, the planning, or the Board of Health. Can you help me with that?
Sure. And I think we had part of this discussion with the Charter and Bylaw Review Committee already, and I think they had supported this language as well, a majority of that committee. But I think so. So in my personal opinion, all of those departments should be excluded, not just the school department and not just the library. It's all of those departments, but I'm part of the library board, and so that's what I can speak to. So the library board is an independent board the way it is. It's an independent board that's the way it should be, with all the book challenges and things coming up in the country and the world. Libraries' independence and independence of knowledge is of utmost importance. So taking away that power from the elected board that was elected for specifically this purpose and goes through MBLC training, and moving that to the hands of an appointed official. And no offense to Matt, Matt is great, and Matt is a great town manager. This is not speaking to that. This is not speaking to our current board either, although they are also great. This is like a long-term conversation of whether that power is intended to stay with the elected board that was elected specifically to manage the library director and represent that part and the authority that's given to the board in that MGL part
Yep.
that's referenced there versus putting that administration in the hands of a single appointed official.
So Padma, can I ask you a few more questions on this? You mentioned, I think you mentioned, book challenges in the world and in the country, etc., right? And I'm failing to see how, like, these governance changes could, there are many different ways they could fall, but how they could potentially or realistically cause there to be a book ban instituted by a town manager who, yeah.
I'm sorry, you're failing to see how the library board can help prevent that, or you're.
Well, no, actually, let me be really, I'm sorry, more direct. I understand that, things go on in the world and in this country, there are book bans in places, etc., right? I genuinely don't see how leaving the charter as it is, if we were to do that, could negatively affect Bedford with a greater risk of book bans. Like, we could just leave the charter as it is. The charter says town manager hires supervisors and terminates. I don't think we're at any greater risk of book bans than if we change it to the library trustees can fire the director. I just don't see it. I cannot connect the dots.
Okay, so let me try to help. So first of all, the town manager shall appoint, remove, and supervise all town officers, and we talked about this language before. So that language historically has not included the library director or the health director or the planning director or whoever else we are talking about, sorry, that I can't remember, since the existence of the library in Bedford. So
I'm sorry, could you repeat that again, Padma? I didn't follow that. You said what?
Yeah, so you say that the language says the town manager shall appoint, remove, and supervise, and that language is in the existing charter. But there's the rest, the rest of that sentence, though, requires some analysis. And the previous analysis by town council was that language did not include the library director, did not include the health director, did not include the director of assessing, and did not include the planning director. Only after this amendment was raised last summer, I think, or maybe last spring, there was, and we had talked about, and the amendment, our understanding as at the library board was that the amendment was going to be pulled if the library did not agree, which we did not agree after we asked questions about the reasoning and everything.
Okay,
But can I finish the answer? Sorry. And so the reasoning, the reason that it is now interpreted that way is because town council gave a new opinion following what we were told was going to be the withdrawal of that amendment. And town council was the same town council that required the amendment to give town manager that approval authority or that authority over those directors when the assessing, when the Board of Assessors was asking the question years ago. So the same town manager firm, same town council firm required the amendment to give the town manager approval in 2018, 2019, and now saying that the town manager already has approval in 2025. And so we asked for clarification several times about why that change came from the same firm. And frankly, we have not yet received an answer. So with that new interpretation, yes, you are correct. But without that interpretation, we don't think that power has ever been with the town manager. And so that's why if we're going forward on the basis of that new interpretation, we do think that the amendment that's voted on by the Charter and Bylaw Review Committee is what we would propose to do going forward with these clarifying changes.
Okay, so if I can just respond a little bit, I'm not aware of an old opinion of town council, right? Like, I do not have one. I can suss out maybe why the charter was changed in 2019. I think it's a bit of it's difficult to do that forensic determining of exactly why it was changed. I don't, the goal was to give the town manager, my understanding is the goal was to give the town manager the ability to fire the assessor, right? And it seemed like it was a bit mixed up because it only gave the town manager joint authority with the Board of Assessors. So there's my long-winded way of saying there certainly was no opinion. I think I would never try to say, I shouldn't say why I think it was changed because it's just too difficult. So it was a little bit mixed up. Now, in terms of the town council's reasoning for her opinion about the town manager's powers is that a plain reading of the charter, right? And
I disagree.
Well, that's fine. I mean, just because she gives an opinion.
But so it's not just
Well,
I
may
that
I
disagree.
finish?
It's the entire precedent of the town that disagrees.
May I finish? Yeah, but I guess what I'm saying is a whole precedent. I mean, how many times have we hired a library director? The current
Several times,
library
actually.
director, the current
Several
library,
times.
the current library director would never have been able to take her position had Matt not signed off, the town manager signed off on the paperwork. So and that doesn't still change the plain reading of the charter. And you were supplied, or I think it's public, the reasoning that the town council gave behind her opinion, her current opinion, right? And we did obtain a second opinion from municipal council on it, right? So it's not like my opinion, but I would just go back to one thing.
Can we see that second opinion, please? We've been asking to see that second opinion and we were told that it was verbal.
Yeah, no, I did ask a couple weeks ago for it to be in writing. I still don't have it in writing yet. I just checked. It was February 6th. I followed up asking for the written opinion. So I'll follow up again today. The second opinion, that is. We will get one in writing.
But going back to, I still am trying to connect the dots as to how, because this is something I've heard throughout, that the state of the world today and the state of the country is such that we have to be very careful because, books and, banning books, etc. I, for the life of me, cannot figure out how there's a straight line between that and municipal governance proposals here in Bedford. I think it could go many, many different ways. And I don't think it's written in the stars that it could be a bad thing if we leave things as they are, or change it with the way I suggested earlier. I just don't see that. It has not been connected for me.
To clarify, so when you say to leave things as they are, you were talking about leaving things as they are since the new opinion of September 2025. Is that correct?
It's not a new opinion. Okay, one.
Was it from September 2025?
Okay. The opinion of town council is currently the status quo is as I described it, right?
And was the opinion of town council when they asked when the amendment was made to give town manager authority over the Board of Assessors in, I don't know, the year 2018, 2019, wasn't the same town council firm the council that recommended that the charter language be changed to include that authority because it wasn't already included in the existing charter?
So all I'm saying,
and can we not ask that town council that question? We've been asking, can we go back and ask town council that question? We don't have a response. Instead, we're going to a new town council instead of asking the existing town council to clarify why they changed their opinion.
Paul, can I ask a question?
Can Matt just finish, then I'll go to you both.
Okay.
Sure. I think, I think that, this discussion probably highlights why this, one way or another should be clarified. But I just want my understanding of the issue that happened through secondhand conversations back when the assessor thing happened was it wasn't so much asked as for an opinion as an issue came up where the assessor needed to be terminated, and the town manager at the time asked town council for language giving her authority.
Right. That's
to do
exactly
it.
what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, I just want to clarify. It's just
But-
a slight nuance on asking town council for an opinion on, what the current charter says. I don't know that that conversation ever happened or that town council did a deep dive back then.
So
Whereas
we
this time
haven't
we
asked
did-
town council, Matt, excuse me for interrupting, but like, we have the same town council. Why don't we just ask them? That's what we're asking.
Right, no,
So
so I did.
Padma, let me say this. Two things. First, is it's you're gonna say, gee, town council, were you wrong in 2019? Tell us, write us a memo why you were wrong, right?
Paul,
And
you are an attorney and I am an attorney. And so if council is giving you conflicting opinions, you ask them, why is your opinion conflicting? They might appreciate the chance to set the record straight. I think to not ask them the question at all is a failure on our part.
It has
frankly.
been asked. It has been asked.
It has
Town
been
council-
asked of a different town council that we have a verbal opinion that we have not yet seen the
no,
answer from.
no,
This
hold
is
on.
the
Matt,
answer that I've
Can I
been
just
getting.
finish?
Matt, you go ahead and then I'm gonna say something.
Nina in 2019, based on my conversation with her, did not review our charter language against existing case law on town manager appointing authority when that amendment was drafted. The first time she looked at any case law regarding town manager appointing authority was when we asked her to review it this time. It wasn't done
So,
previously.
yeah,
when
but
the other
it was the
amendment
same.
drafted.
It was not, Nina was not the town council. It was the same firm, Anderson Krieger. There was another attorney who was our town council from the same firm who reviewed the language at that time.
I've never worked with the previous.
So I will say this.
It's the same firm.
Fine. I think it's a dry well, but we can disagree on that. But it could have very easily been also the following, which is my understanding is, and I know some of these assessors were at the time, but not like close friends, but I think well-meaning individuals, intelligent individuals who were having a difficult time, managing a difficult situation with the assessor. That's my understanding. I was not in the room. So it could have been just as easy. May I finish? Is that the recommendation was let's put the town manager in there double explicitly in order to make it easier for the assessors to say we're going to blame the town manager for getting rid of terminating an employee. I don't know. I wasn't in the room, but
Okay, but you weren't in the room, but you were happy to just, just say what you thought your friends on the assessor board. So, but you weren't in the room, but we put that language in there. No, you weren't. We put that language in the charter amendment to double clarify when we just said it was already clear. If it was already clear, we wouldn't have needed the language. We are lawyers, Paul. We know how this works. But I think it's disingenuous. I think this whole conversation has been disingenuous for a long time.
So I always strive for being genuine and polite. I will say this has been very frustrating, and I apologize if you feel I've been disingenuous. My apologies. I don't think I have. Bopa, you had a question.
Yes. Sorry, I'm trying to. Okay. So it seems like it seems like Padma and the library trustees want a second opinion or want to go back to town council. And it seems like what I'm hearing from Matt is you've already reached out to town council. You're just waiting for them to respond.
So let me say this, Bopa. I'm very clear. Town council has said what I said. The second opinion, 100%. He's like, it's the power's with the town manager. And as I've said before, it would be wiser to have a political solution because.
So then I guess my question then in terms of, again, when this was presented probably a month or so ago with the exclusion of the school committee and the library trustee, my question was, why just the library trustee? I do understand the school, but why just the library trustee and why not everyone else? So so the thing is, my question is, if we were to exclude the school committee and library trustee and then put the exclusion of the planning board and everything back, what would that look like? Maybe this question is for Matt, or like, is that, I don't,
So Bopa, are you asking if planning, health, and assessors had the same language that the library is proposing? So their
yeah,
boards
so
would-
so I guess I thought I heard, and please correct me, because I thought I heard Paul initially ask when this started, like why, which I asked the same thing, why just the library trustee? So in this case, like for me, in the first place, I thought the same thing of like, why just library trustee? If we were gonna exclude, why don't we exclude others as well? If we were going to include, why don't we include others as well? So I'm just wondering, like, why? I guess.
Or Bopa, is the question, what if we did all of the elected boards do the hiring, firing, and sole supervision of those top positions we talked about? Is that
Yeah, so why, yeah, so
what,
why don't
what would
we-
that look like, Matt, in terms of town governance?
Sure. So, and just to be clear, it's done. This is done a lot of different ways in different communities. There's no perfect way to do it. I think I've said this in the past, but I just want to reiterate it again. There are towns where the town managers appoint everyone on the general government side. There are towns where elected boards still appoint, department heads and or some other staff. Just one more, quick clarification before I jump into that. My search here for the last hirings for the planning director and health director, it does look like interviews were done jointly with the boards and the hiring was done by the town manager on those positions. Again, not talking about the library director. So just want to clarify that it hasn't been consistent here in Bedford. So this goes a little bit to what both Padma and Bopa, have been talking about. So to you, Bopa, here, I think it's been done differently here in Bedford in the past. The whole hiring process, if we put away the who had the authority side for a minute, the process for hiring the last two library directors, my understand, was handled entirely by the trustees. The process for the other positions has been more collaborative and joint, through the interview process and or done differently, such as a town manager appointment. So it hasn't been all in one here in Bedford, and in a lot of communities, it's still not. Some communities, like we did with the assessors, have done one or two boards at a time when the community, felt like it was right. So I don't think there's a right or wrong answer. When the charter committee, asked me, I gave my professional opinion that the cleanest way is, the simplest option that we discussed, where the town manager appoints the general government staff. Policy direction comes from the boards. Totally respect that in Bedford and in a lot of other communities that might not be the model. You start to peel back, whether it's appointment, whether it's other supervision. So it can be done different ways. I think we're really close here with the language we're talking about. I would be hesitant to bring this further and recommend that the proposed language we're talking about for the library director should be expanded to the other boards as well, because from what I can tell, at least for the health, there's already been a change for the Board of Assessors that's been codified in here. For the Board of Health and the Planning Board, they're both on board with language that has more town manager involvement. In the history of the hiring in those two positions has been, at least from what I can tell, done by the town manager with involvement from those boards in the interview process. So the language we have here is sort of very close to our history. If you put together, the legality of it for a minute, we're very close to what we've been doing. I don't know if that answers your question, Bopa. If you need to re-ask any piece of it, I'll try.
I think that's good for now.
Okay. So before we I just want to read a few things. This is just pieces of information for the board. One, I agree with Matt. Would Bedford fall off the face of the earth if we carve out both the schools and the library? No, it would not. I think it's prudent to do, as Matt had suggested, have it changed the way I've discussed. But again, the world will be fine if it doesn't go the way that I think is prudent. But I will just read as a piece of information some things I looking at for three different towns we sometimes look to. One, Concord, I think it's interesting. The select board appoints the trustees and the town manager can fire the director. I think that's interesting. I think Concord is pretty well-run town. Arlington, town manager and the select board appoint the trustees, and then within the there's language I'm summarizing. Trustees, the trustees are subject to this general supervision and director of the town manager. So that's Arlington. Lexington, they have an appointed set of trustees, two of in their executive board, who I think actually, really runs it. Two select board members, one school committee member, and then two clergy members. So I think that that group can fire the director. So my point is that I think there are different ways to govern a library. I think one way is prudent. Obviously, library directors think otherwise. And I'm happy to leave it at that with the proposal to hear from the fellow board members. I'll definitely get to you, Padma. But at this point, I just want to hear a little bit more from the board before I then fully open it up.
Mike also has his hand up.
Mike.
I don't know if I'm sorry, we're not at the, okay.
Yeah,
Sorry.
it's up to you, Paul.
I'll definitely, obviously, the public can hear it, but I just open it up to any board member who wants to speak to the generalness. Bopa, any further comments, or do you want to leave it to
Not yet.
Okay. Terrence?
Yes, I do want to speak to this issue. Coming in and taking over as the library trustee liaison, I've somewhat felt like I was sort of in the middle. I do understand the library trustees' perspective, and I'll just summarize it. And Padma, you can tell me if I'm not stating it correctly. I think the library trustees believe that under the Mass General laws, they control library policy, that they are in charge of managing library funds, and that they hire and supervise the library director. Now, the bylaw and charter committee came up with something that I think, I won't say it's the opposite of it, but it certainly does not comport with what the library trustees feel their authority is. And so the question is, who's right and who's wrong? And we heard about legal opinions and such, but being put in this position, I felt as though the first thing I had to do was try to educate myself. And so I did that. And I'll just tell you what I found. I'm not saying it's 100% correct, but I think it may help the discussion, especially in light of the fact that many on this call have asked what's special, or basically said what's special about the library. From what I could find, the library trustees as an elected position was created in 1851 by the Massachusetts legislature. And the idea was to have an independent body be in charge of the library. Now, why is that? As best I can figure out, it was because at that time, that was the main source of information. Now, it's hard for us to remember and some of us weren't even around on this call. If we go back 30, 35 years where the internet is not that common, it's hard to remember that a time when you had to go to the library, or maybe have some encyclopedias, but basically you had to go to the library to get information. And obviously times have changed. We have people who have mainframe computers, they got laptops, you got tablets, and most people carry around a smartphone, have access to the internet and access to a wealth of knowledge. However, there are people in this town and in other towns that get a lot of their information still from the library. They may not have high-speed computer access. They go to the library. There are databases that can be accessed from the library. So I definitely heard Padma when she said she doesn't know about the planning board or the tax assessor or these other entities, that she's focused on the library trustees. And I don't know, the interplay between the leaders of those groups. I'm just focused on the library trustees. So I do think that all in all, there does seem to be a special provision carved out for the library trustees, and they are elected officials. So if we go with a change where we give more power to the town manager essentially works for us, the select board, and we're elected. So essentially, if we make changes whereby a lot of the power and control and supervision go to the town manager, we're essentially, in the eyes of the trustees, taking what they feel is in their province as elected officials and bringing it from the trustee board over to the select board. And I don't feel comfortable with that. I don't know what the answer is, but I think if there is a legal opinion that states that the town has the right to have the town manager have this power, then we don't need to change the charter.
So, Terry, may I ask you a question then?
Uh-huh.
So I actually thought you were going one way, and then at the end, maybe going back to a different way. Is, if I could reverse it in time, right, and go back to the very beginning of the charter and bylaw, I would have left it 100% alone. And if I had to make a choice today, only could do one thing. Well, no, that's not going to be helpful. I would be happy to leave it as is, right? Because I think that's a prudent way to go. So the changes like that I would actually propose, change it not to give the town manager more power, but less, because it would make it clear in the charter that it's joint hiring authority. The naked word of supervision that's the town manager has, I would circumscribe it to point to the law, Massachusetts law, that says the trustees control the operations of the library in the actual physical space. I'm paraphrasing. And then I would leave it for the firing, because I think that's prudent. So that's leaving it as is. Yeah, I guess I'd be okay with it. I think it's probably better to change it the way I suggest.
Well, let me ask you this, Paul. I mean to interrupt you, but
sure.
What is it about the trustees' proposal that you feel is a non-starter?
Well, so I would say two things. One is, none of it's a non-starter. I don't think it's, the most fantastic thing in the world at all. I mean, certainly, I presume there are towns in this Commonwealth where the trustees have the power to fire, and they, do just fine. So I don't think it's an end of the world thing. But I think it's prudent to let the town manager do it, because just imagine all those different department heads, right? They now no longer report to the town manager. And I think that would be kind of a poor structure of government. And then you'll say, well, planning board and assessors and Department of Health, Board of Health, they're okay. So it would only be the library director. But I just don't think that's the way we should look at it for the governance. I think it should be, all for one. And then the other point is, and I think there's a mistaken conflation with the following, is when we talk about who can run the library, the policy, right? I think the charter as it is, but especially if it's amended on the supervision piece, make it super clear that the town manager cannot say what books may be disseminated, etc., right? And I think any town manager who tried to exercise that power would be doing so contrary to the charter, and it would be extra legal, right? So the for lack of a better term, the boogeyman of a someday bad town manager, I think is honestly misplaced. I think it's a genuine concern, and I think that's where there's the problems in the country and the world that people point to. I get it, but when you scratch it a little bit further, like you would have to have a town manager acting illegally, and you would have to have a select board asleep at the switch that would let a town manager act like a goofball. Now, I recognize that's the same thing I'm saying about the library trustees too, but I think it's at some point I'd prefer for the buck to stop when it comes to potential shenanigans by any employee with someone who's a professional in HR kind of stuff, and someone who has the access to the town council and a full HR kind of infrastructure behind him or her. So, but Bopa, I think, had a question. If you,
Well,
Terry, are
I
you
just
good
have
for
a
now,
quick-
or
I
before
just,
Bopa?
I,
Yeah. Mhm.
Okay.
then it made me go back to the same thing. Library trustees are elected, planning board people are elected as well, Board of Health, they're elected as well. So what, again, like it, so it's not like we appoint the planning board or we appoint the assessor. Do you know what I mean? Like,
So they're in the same boat as the library.
right, again,
Yeah.
it's the same thing. It's like I'm trying to distinguish here. So I know like Terrence, you had mentioned, they're elected, and then so it goes back to,
I
why
think-
don't we just exclude them all?
Well, I can't really speak to the planning board. I'm not the liaison to the planning board, so excuse my ignorance. I'm just mainly focusing on library trustees, and there was a concern when the library trustees were created that you would have a town government that would control information. And I think that's less of a concern today, but it still can't be discounted. You still
Yeah,
could-
I would say, Terry, though, that the state laws are such that it can switch over to the, town manager or select board, to wit, our friends in Lexington, Concord, and Arlington. I'm going to jump to Dan, and then hopefully Sean, and then we'll let the public speak some more, because I'm getting tired too.
I think Sean's hand was up first, actually, so I'm happy to have Sean go before if you'd like.
Sean?
Okay, yeah, thanks, Dan. So I have a few thoughts on this. I mean, first of all, I really regret how the whole thing has gotten so personal. I know it's lasted for a long time, and I really think everyone involved is not acting with ill intent. It's just, it's a very intense discussion, but I respect everyone involved. I do think that we absolutely have to put something out there now, because what we have from the town council is an opinion, and it's an opinion that people have questioned. And if it ever came to the point where somebody had to take action on one of these department heads, I wouldn't want things tied up in litigation for a long time. I think we should have a political decision. We put something there for town meeting. I like the library edits here. I understand their desire to be excluded along with the school department. I mean, look, I'm an engineer. I appreciate symmetry and uniformity. I think there's certainly a case to be made for that. But I also understand that, it doesn't have to be that way. Terry mentioned some things when he was talking about how the library is different from a legal perspective. I also appreciate how the library operates in a different building away from the town campus, not like the planning director who sits essentially under Matt in the town hall, or the health director who's not that far away. And we really don't see a lot of library type things come before the select board. So I can appreciate that it is different, but I think more significantly than that, the library trustees, who are an elected board, have spoken out pretty loudly against this, and I think that means something. That alone is different from what the planning board, or it sounds like the Board of Health is okay now with the new language. So I support what the library is proposing that's on the screen. I think a lot of the edits make things very more specific. And I appreciate the MGL reference. So those would be my thoughts. Did you have a question, Paul?
So I would point out, it is interesting. I did speak to a library director in another town who pointed out that I don't want to out them, but he or she does work with all the different department heads. So even though Matt's the town manager doesn't sit with the library, town manager also doesn't sit with facilities or the police or the fire, etc. Right? And so I would just leave it at that. And I respect your opinion, but I just do, in terms of thinking about it. I said my piece. Anything else, Sean?
No, that's it.
Okay, thank you. Dan.
Yep. Thanks, everyone. Sean, as usual, said brilliant things before I did, so that's great. Listen, I think we've spent hours and heard 24 comments on this. This public hearing has devolved again into Paul and Padma taking opposite positions that we've all heard before. In the interest of moving forward, if this is a public hearing, I'd like to hear from more people. I think at this point, the ship is so far out to harbor, we're not going back to the original charter. The first suggestion feels like the people that we have trusted with our decision-making process, including the Charter and Bylaw Committee and library trustees, has said, this isn't good. Here's something else. Occam's razor. I don't want to spin out contingencies and paranoias. This proposal seems eminently reasonable. It will solve most of the problems. People are going to walk away unhappy. That's fine. Nothing new is going to be surfaced between now and our agenda item later, I think. We're going to take a position. This seems completely fine to me. We have made it such an issue, and there's a lot of responsibility we can share on that one. But let's finish this conversation up. Let's hear from some more people. There's an elegant solution right here. Thank you to you all. And I'm looking forward to this being over, because it's been a long, long time.
So I can read the room, and I would prefer, instead of hearing a lineup, and they can still line up, but I would take a straw poll. And Matt, did you have something to say before I took the straw poll?
Yes. I just had one more question, because up until a couple days ago, I like all the language here, except I had the question about the respective employees being moved from where it was to after the library directors as well, because it's been my understanding that prior town managers and myself as the town manager, I've hired all the other staff since I got here, and the prior managers did. So I think this actually is a change from what our past practice was. In the previous request from the library trustees was to codify what our past practice was into the bylaw, and this seems to be the only sentence that's a change. So I'm just wondering what the rationale for that was. And if we add language excluding more folks, I think we need to add language in here that says who would appoint the other library employees, and or is this something that the library trustees feel very strongly about, or would you be happy just having the library director excluded? And I just wanted to hear from Padma on that.
This language was based on a public comment that was, I think, at the last select board hearing or select board meeting public comments. I won't speak. I believe the select board said that it was a good comment and we should include it. They saw no reason not to include it. I don't want to speak for anyone, but that was the basis on which I included the language here.
Yeah, I could jump in because Padma's correct. It was a public comment. Unfortunately, I don't know the commenter, but I know I had said later in the meeting I thought it was good because if you leave out the word such town officers and just take the sentence alone, it could mean everybody, even though it might. So,
no, I'm sorry. I completely agree with that. Like,
Yeah.
just to clarify that, the one before that where it says "and their respective employees," would that mean that
I think
like library pages and other things? That's the one that I was. There were two additions. The word "such town officers" I agree with, but respective employees makes it sounds like all library employees and all school employees are excluded now, and that's not the current past practice, and so I don't know who would be appointing the other library employees now.
So I think the language previously was I can't see the screen anymore, so I don't know if I'm doing something wrong. Oh no, wait, sorry, I can. So it said this further excluding school department employees, school department further excluding school department employees. And so we were making it making there be parity. So school department, library director, and their respective employees. So we were just making it parity with and that had been called out in the public comment from someone.
Oh, okay. I missed that in the public comment then. Okay, well, I would just note for the record, I mean, it's totally up to the folks here, but I just want to clarify, if we're trying to go with past practice, that would be a change. And I would recommend that we would need to add additional language on who would it be, like the library director or the library trustees would be appointing the rest of the folks, or could we just put it back to the way it was? That would match our current past practice.
Or we
those are my
could
two
go
comments.
with what
The library trustees are not going to be hiring pages, Matt, correct? No way.
Well, that's what that's
No,
how I read.
I don't. So that's not how I read it.
Excuse me. If the interpretation is the library trustees are appointing pages, that's not the interpretation I'm on board with. You know.
Yeah,
They're
and I
not
don't think
hiring
that's what they
the rank
want,
and file
right?
staff of the library.
I don't think that's not how I read it. So this first sentence is talking about the town.
I'm asking Matt, all right?
Okay, sorry.
So sorry, that's how I was interpreting it when I read it now. Because it says excluding those in Article 3, which are select board appointees, school department, library director, and their respective employees would all be excluded from my appointing authority. So that means somebody else has to appoint those folks now. And it's silent on who that would be. For the school department, you would then just really have to divert back to some other language. Right now, that's clear for the school committee, like MGL, but like if you were to go to the bylaws right now, I think they say that the Board of Library Trustees only appoint the library director.
So Matt, may I interrupt you, is keeping in mind if we want to affect mainly what the library trustees want, is that what the charter and bylaw recommendation does? Like that language you read and you think that works, right?
Yes. I mean, I think if you left the words such and such and such, it makes sense. But I think this line right here just would need to go.
I mean, I think trying to write the charter on the fly like this is, I don't know, ill-considered. I think the charter and bylaw recommendation has had somewhat of a, well, you've gone through it. We haven't sent it to town council for any more thoughts, but I mean, it's, I don't know. We could try to edit this on the fly. I'm against it.
Oh, all right. It sounds like we're all conceptually on the same page. It might just be, cleaning it up with town council after the fact. All right, I just wanted to point that out, that it was unclear to me in reading it who would be appointing those employees based on this, but if everyone's on the same page on what the intent is, we can clean that up after and go to the rest of the public comment. That's fine.
Okay. With that, I think I think with my straw poll, I think I know where it's going, so I won't even bother taking one. Unless someone wants to disagree with me. But I do think it's, I'm going to open it up to public comment. For the folks who are here lined up for the library trustees position, you're welcome to talk, but I think you can read a straw poll too. I would especially invite, if there's to go first, anyone on any of the other elected boards, if they wish to speak, they can start it.
The other elected boards. All right, I see.
Yeah, like,
there's a lot of hands.
Sue Schwartz or B, if they wish to speak.
Okay, we'll start with B.
If she wants to. I don't know if she does.
Yeah, B has her hand up. B, Emily S, Elizabeth H, and Mike P.
B, did you want to go ahead?
Can you hear me?
I can.
Oh,
Yes.
yes. Okay, great. Hi. So thanks for letting me speak. I guess the audio doesn't come. I mean the video. That's okay. So I just want to say that I am pleased to see the edits that the library trustees did put in terms of now codifying the piece about approval for hiring. We are an elected board. We are specialists. Usually we have different specialties than select board, for instance. And so I believe that there's a reason why people elect certain people to the Board of Health because of their specialty, and therefore they are, by and large, more qualified to hire people and to understand qualifications and so forth of the job. And so I feel very strongly that we should have the approval of the elected board for the hiring. The firing, it's tough. I have to say that in the past, yes, if there are problems with employees, we definitely appreciate HR things, but I worry that we get stuck in a process, not separating a process versus authority. And so, I know that I've been talking about this for about 2 years now. I was trying to look back to see when we first met with you, Matt and Paul, actually with Maureen Riccici at the time. It's been a long time, and I know it's been going through ups and downs and so forth. But, I think that we have a Board of Health meeting coming up in early March, and this will definitely be a topic of conversation or a topic on the agenda. And we'll see how the rest of the board feels about it. But I do appreciate that the library trustees did put in that language for approval for hiring, because I feel very strongly about that. Thanks. I think that's all I have to say.
Great. All right, Paul, I'm going to unmute Elizabeth Hacklin now.
Thank you.
Ele-
Thank you, Matt. I just wanted to say a few really quick things. First off, I want to appreciate everybody's time and energy on this. As was said previously by Dan, we have all spent a lot of time and energy on this. Paul certainly has, all of the trustees, and I know we all have the best interests of the town at heart. For a few pieces of just background, I want to clarify that the changes that were made for the assessor situation are pretty well described in the town meeting warrant for special town meeting 2019, as well as the charter and bylaws report of 2019. So if we have questions about why things are happening, they're pretty well laid out there. I also just want to point out that in our own organizational chart of the town, that the select board and all the independent boards are on the same level with the other town departments reporting into the town manager. and the town manager reporting to select board. And I feel like that's a piece that we haven't really paid attention to during this conversation, that organizational chart describes how we see our town structured. And I don't want to stand in the way of other elected boards who say, this is really helpful, this will make my work better. All the more power to them. I think that is great. I think that having it as independent as humanly possible library serves the town well. We've gone over why. I've said it before. I don't need to reiterate it. I will add, though, that in 1976, the law was changed so that clergy were no longer required to be part of the Board of Library Trustees. And the reason for that was to take away a religious overview of what happened at the library and put it more in the hands directly of the public. And I think that is part of what we need to protect going forward, because as Terrence said, the information is everywhere, but the library serves a different kind of purpose now, with not just books and DVDs and music, but also internet access and the ability to print, and the other tools that allow people to succeed in modern life. And then last, I just want to acknowledge that, the sort of weirdness that Matt was referring to, I know those are my words, not his, about sort of the town, the library employees being town employees, but that they are hired by the library director, and the library director is hired by the trustees. That's been true for a while. We've made it work. I think if there's some clarification we need about that, we could do some sort of memo of understanding between the trustees and the town manager, or the library director and the town manager, about who will handle what. But for the charter and bylaws, I really feel strongly that keeping that independence in those documents is an important safeguard, not for the people in the jobs now who are great and doing good work, but for the people who could find themselves in the jobs in the future and might be less publicly oriented. So thank you so much for the time.
Oh, Paul, you're muted. Sorry.
Yes, thank you, Matt. Is there how many people lined up
Yep,
to
two
speak?
more. We have Mike Polizzi.
Yeah. Go ahead, Mike.
Thank you very much. I appreciate everybody's time. Just a few things. I'd like to also thank Terrence for his efforts as our representative from the select board. We really appreciate his support. I'd like to touch on 2 or 3 things. What Elizabeth just said, as library board members, first and foremost, from my opinion, being on the board for 20 years, the independence of the library is paramount. And I do think, as Terrence pointed out, and this had been mentioned at a meeting of the Charter and Bylaws Committee, that if the proposed changes previously had been made about the hiring and firing, in essence, that would have given the select board more power, because they are the ones that hire and fire the town manager. And that is not something that the library board was interested in doing, in increasing the power of the select board. I'm not a lawyer, so I won't speak to the legality of things, but it's been pointed out that this all started years ago with the Board of Assessors having a difficult time with some management issues, and we understand that. I'm not sure how the domino theory was then employed to say that the library board would then ultimately fall prey at some point to management issues, and that somehow the school committee, because it has its own HR department and is larger than all the other boards, could be exempt from that. The logic of that is clearly not seen with all the issues that have surrounded the school board in the last year. Everybody at some point possibly has management issues. The school board is not exempt from that. So I don't see how we can neglect the reality of that point like it doesn't exist. The library, first and foremost, should be given its independence. And thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mike. Anyone else, Matt?
Sorry, I just unmuted Emily S.
Emily?
Yes, thank you. Actually, it's Mark Siegenthaler, and
Oh.
I wish I could explain to you why my daughter hijacked my name on Zoom. And
Very good, Mark. Well, it's all yours then.
well, I have one quick question for you, which is that my comments do not have anything to do with the library, but do have to do with other charter proposals. So let me know. I'm happy to step back and wait until you get to the others. I just wanted to make sure there was going to be time.
Well, there will be time, but you have the chair. You have our attention.
All right. Well, then let me divert you for a moment. Take a deep breath on your library discussion and your authority discussion, and I will make two brief sets of comments. One, you may or may not remember that I was not particularly in support of the change in the date of town meeting.
Yes, I remember.
Annual town meeting, at special town meeting, and I won't go through that again. I still believe that there are pros and cons, and the cons outweigh the pros in moving the actual date of town meeting.
Yep.
But I will jump to the change in the election.
Yep.
And there are two things I guess I would say. One is that if you are successful in moving town meeting, I don't think it's worth moving the election, in part because part of the problem with them being so close together right now is that new select board members get elected and they're immediately thrown into town meeting without a whole lot of background time to get up to speed for the meeting. My bigger actual serious concern is the statement that's been added here. The select board shall have the authority to move the date. I am unfamiliar with elections in which the date is not the date. I don't see in any of the materials what any kind of possible explanation could be.
Can I give that to you now, Mike? Are you ready for it?
Well, one second. I don't see any guardrails to say that you need to make this decision by a certain date and time so people know that you are going to move it and that you have. And then there are no reasons for why the select board would be allowed to move the date of the election. So I don't think it's drafted in a way that makes any particular sense. I don't know why you would want to have three people have the ability to move the election for the entire town.
Sure. You ready for my response?
Sure.
Okay. And I'm working on a little bit of memory because I actually was thinking more about the town manager's powers in this one. The thinking behind it was of the change, which I'm only tepid on, to be honest with you, but it was a recommendation of the charter and bylaw that I thought was maybe inoffensive, is that every presidential primary year, there are too many elections bunched up that apparently was confusing to some non-de minimis amount of people. So that's one. Two, the ability for the select board to change it was with the view that should it fall on Passover, that we would have the flexibility to change it to the week before or the week after. And I think the ability to change it was limited to a certain time period from the given date. I could be wrong on that. And then I'm kind of making up the following, the last point, which is presumably the willy-nilliness of it is, I presume there are state laws it requires to have the postings, in a timely manner, not just to pop up. Matt, is that a fair description of what, we've talked about at least?
Yeah, I mean, the reasons that you explained are the reasons that the committee suggested. I think to Mark's point, that we will make sure that that's clear in the presentation if this moves forward, what those reasons are, and or put some of those guardrails in there. But yeah, just based on the practicality of an election, I think it's 45 days. We have to get the warrant done, 30 or 45 days. So there are a few guardrails on it just from the state requirements, but I agree there's nothing written in there. But yeah, that was the only reason for the flexibility, is those two reasons that you mentioned, Paul.
Yep. And Mark, I kind of agree with you that, maybe it's better to leave it as is in terms of give new select board members more time for if we move the town meeting date. But, we'll see. When we recommend changes, I'm gonna continue to recommend it, but, there are some things that are more important than others as well.
Yeah, I guess I feel like it's difficult to justify flexibility in being able to name the date of an election when, well, I mean, so one of the reasons that you've given is basically based on religious practice. So I'm not quite sure exactly how that plays out. And I understand, Matt, that it's 45 days to prepare and issue an election warrant, but I mean, so I don't really understand that though. Does that mean, so for instance, in January, the select board will decide to move the date, or in February, they'll move the date? Will people who are trying to run for office know that the date could or couldn't be moved for some particular reason? And frankly, with the world we live in, if the select board's not getting along, or the select board isn't excited about somebody who's going to run for office, I mean, so let's just move the date around. Let's make this a moving target. I don't understand the moving target part. Makes absolutely no sense to me. There's a 14-day window in which you've established this thing. It could be 7 days before, it could be 7 days after.
But Mike, you see, you don't
Mark.
understand.
Mark, idiot. You're an idiot.
What?
Well, hold on. Hold on. I'm chairing the meeting.
Oh,
Please no.
I'm gonna have one person talk at a time.
What was that?
Calling.
Mike, please mute yourself.
Yeah,
That was
there were previous speakers that I kicked them back
Yeah.
out.
So.
Well, could I just jump in
Mike,
for a
I was
second?
just making the point that, I mean, I gave you the whatever. I gave you the reason. And it
Yes.
can rise or fall at town meeting. It may not be wise depending upon the view of town meeting. I
Let
agree.
me, I'll just one last moment.
Of course.
I didn't really expect this would be a debate. I didn't expect you to have to try to answer. I mean, to me, a hearing, you.
Okay.
You thank everybody for taking the information, and that's great. I don't expect you to try to figure out how to answer anything I did or didn't say, or, whatever it might be.
Okay, that's fine.
I wanted to put it out there. This was the moment to do it, and I appreciate your time, and I agree. I appreciate you all listening. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mike.
Okay, Mark.
Mark, gosh, it's late. I'm fatigued, but thank you, Mark.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyone else, Matt?
Yeah, we have one more hand up. I think Mike would like to speak again. Mike Polizzi.
Yes. Yes, Mike.
Mike,
the floor is yours again.
I already spoke. No, I already
okay.
spoke.
Your hand was still raised.
No, sorry, I already spoke. I apologize.
No problem.
Got it. Okay. Anyone else? Okay. So, Matt, before I ask for motion to close the public hearing, anything else we should cover?
Okay, so yeah, I just want to we might want to just clarify to the other folks on the call. I didn't know if we just wanted to see if anyone has any comments on any of the other items,
Yes.
and let folks know that. I mean, I can quickly go through the list and say, well, I'm assuming if people are on the call, they read the notice. So if you want to just open it up to any other items at this time.
Any other items, please?
And then, of course, the board will. Yeah.
Any hands raised?
I don't see any hands raised.
Does any board member want to say anything further, or should we close the public hearing?
I'm good.
I move to close the public hearing on the charter and bylaw amendments.
Second.
Okay, Paul says yes. Sean?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
Volpa?
Aye.
Terrence?
Yes.
Okay, it's closed.
Can you unpromote all the panelists now who we called up to speak, Matt?
Sure. Do we have anyone left? Okay, yep, one more.
Thank you. We don't have repeated that last situation.
Okay. So, Matt, we
still
don't have
have
anything.
two. We still have two, Matt.
Oh, panel 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, I'm
still
I'm
see
only.
I still see B and Liz on the as panelists.
Oh, sorry, I was looking at the panelist side. Yep, I'm gonna mute them now. Stock and
Don't take it personally, friends.
no, you're right. We gotta clean that up.
That's why we do that.
Yep, we are. It should just be the 6 of us now.
Good, thank you.
Okay, very good. Nothing to do elsewise on the public hearing on this, right? Now we're moving to the next agenda item, town meeting warrant.
Yes.
Okay. Are there changes that we need to make to the warrant tonight that we need to discuss based on our discussion?
Just a few minor things I'll note that have changed in the warrant, and we have Tony Fields, and as far as getting folks to speak first, Tony Fields and Pam Brown are on the call regarding the slightly modified zoning bylaw language. I'm waiting for it to pull up now, but Tony, do you want to kick that off and give the board the brief overview? I gave it a very quick intro at the last meeting that there was a change, but I didn't feel comfortable enough speaking to it. Oh, I have to allow him to talk, and I'm going to promote Pam Brown as well. All right, Pam and Tony, you should be able to speak now. I'm pulling up the charter.
Can you just confirm you can hear me?
Yep.
You can, okay. I'll let Tony go first, but I just needed to make sure I didn't have to log in a different way.
Tony, can you unmute? And then again, this is for the card. I'll send Tony a text to see if he's still with us. Pam, do you want to get started on the cottage overlay district based on the last meeting while I reach out to Tony?
Yeah, let me just open. So I actually can't quite remember what the update last time was, but the last time we presented to the select board, I believe we were talking about a 40Y bylaw. We may have already updated you that we'd met with the planning board and ultimately decided that, as you did, that a bylaw that's really just a local Bedford specific bylaw is probably a better idea. So the last meeting we had with the planning board, which I believe was February 10th, we went through the bylaw line by line, which was a good exercise. I'm actually trying to pull up my own red line so I can tell you what the changes were. So other than not calling it starter home, we're now calling it the cottage overlay district. And we've removed all of the references to the state 40Y, which really leaves Bedford in control. And a primary reason for doing this was to allow, the state doesn't love cross references to other sections of our bylaw. They wanted a self-contained document. So by working through this process, we were able to actually delete a lot of text by, instead of trying to quickly summarize it or hit some bullet points, we just cross-reference the other sections of the bylaw. Essentially, this is still a bylaw that's intended to create opportunities for compact and attainable housing. It has a size limitation on it of 1,850 square feet, which will work, I think, significantly and effectively to provide smaller housing, whether it's for starters or for downsizers. And we'll also keep housing prices much more in check so that you don't take a lot and just build an extremely large single family or two family. So we had removed some of the summary text on, bullet points from site plan review, and we clearly just say this is subject to site plan review. I'm trying to think if there are any other key points.
And we do have Tony on now, if you want him to take it away at any point. I don't want to cut you off, but he is here.
No, he may say something similar. The general terms in terms of minimum lot size and density and so forth haven't really changed, although we actually reduced to 2 stories rather than 2.5, and reduced the building height to 30 feet. Again, trying to keep a more modest scale. the size limitation of 1,850 square feet is, we changed to refer to gross floor area to be consistent with the building department and other codes. It obviously, I shouldn't say obviously, but it excludes any garages, but we're gross floor area. And otherwise, you know, we have some design standards. The idea is to have some universal design, to have some ability, if not already, to make, you know, adjustments to accommodate handicapped accessibility. There's some landscaping requirements. So we did go back and include requirement for off-street parking, but leave that a little bit flexible. But did say no more than one garage space, and the purpose of that again was to keep the bulk of the buildings down. But otherwise, at that last meeting, we literally deleted probably a whole page of text just because we're now able to do the cross references to existing sections of the bylaw. For example, the floodplain district and the aquifer protection district, for example. But I'll pause and Tony can jump in, or we can ask or answer questions.
So,
Tony, all yours.
I'm not sure I need to follow up with much, but this is the concept that's been on and off under discussion for longer than the 10 years I've been here.
Yeah.
This is now a cottage overlay district concept. So it takes a couple of the features from the state provisions for starter homes, but you know, the discussion, especially as it applies to the Elm Street property, had always been about trying to create retirement opportunity housing, not necessarily starter homes, but by turning it into a cottage district, it's really to emphasize that these are smaller dwellings intended to serve a range of options for either, you know, first-time home buyers, young families, or retiring or downsizing seniors. And so it does allow a density of 10 units per acre, which is kind of fitting the model that was presented to us for the specific redevelopment of 49 Elm Street. So it's a little denser than what might be allowed in the underlying district, but it's not substantially different than the town center neighborhood. And it is substantially less dense than the multifamily that we were required to adopt.
Tony, can I interrupt your question?
Communities.
Can I interrupt? Oh, I'm sorry, Sean. You had your hand raised first. I'll go after you.
Okay, thanks, Paul. So, Tony, one question I had is, I know when I presented, I mean, first of all, thank you for doing it this way, because I think it's better to have it be a local bylaw than to try to do the state thing. I had some concerns about that. But I know when this was presented and it's trying to apply to that property on Elm Street, there was 1,850 square foot houses, and then the proposal for units that were less than that. And kind of the idea was, okay, you might have to have some 1850s so developers would be attracted, but you're really kind of targeting those like maybe 1200s that are affordable even from a market perspective. And when I read this bylaw, correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like you could build all 1850. And I wonder if that's the intent, and if so, why not? Why wasn't there some average unit size put in to attract some of the smaller ones?
That's a valid question. That if you look at the Pine Hill Overlay District that was created, which was the former Coast Guard housing, that overlay district imposes a 1,500 square foot unit size limit. It happened to work for the development proposal that was there. The military ranches that were at that property on Pine Hill are only 1,200 square foot dwellings, but here, I think working with the team that was, promoting the 40Y concept, the board agreed to kind of keep the 1,850 square feet that statute happens to use.
I will chime in and say that the actual proposal does have a mix. I know the discussion, if it came to it, is in part, the definition of gross floor area. So for example, even if something was built at, say, 1,200 square feet, but there was the opportunity to convert a basement, was that going to push it so that it was a higher number? Never over the 18, but I don't know how much discussion we would need to see if that's an issue or not. But I know David Goldbaum's proposal has a mix of both numbers of bedrooms as well as size of units that varies pretty greatly.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, and thank you both. I know the proposal has a mix. I'm just wondering why it's not codified here, and I appreciate too that this is a district that's being proposed that would go for more than one type of development, but you could meet the Goldbaum proposal by also having an average size, which would then encourage future such developments to consider if they're going to have the 1,850 to also have like the 1,200s.
Well, if we have time to do it, we can certainly try to draft a little bit of additional language into here. We do it before the planning board public hearing on it.
Okay, I think that would be good. Thank you.
My question for you, Tony, is that, and I'm sorry if I'm being dense here, is currently by right, how many units can there be on that property?
49 Elm Street has about 40,000 square feet of land area. It can, under current zoning, build a 2-family house and have an accessory dwelling unit. So you can create.
So it would be going from 3 to 10.
3
is
total
what I was
units.
trying to get at. Okay, all right, thank you. Anything else from you, Tony, or was that it?
That's it.
Any Pam, you're all good too, right?
Yeah, just a quick footnote to your question and Tony's answer is, in this particular neighborhood, and Tony alluded to it earlier, in terms of sort of the neighborhood character already, this may be a tiny tad more dense, but if you look at the abutting properties, there are actually 3 lots on each side of this property running along School Ave and I'm spacing the other street, Raymond Street. And of those, a number of them are already 2 families. So if you took those 6 lots, they almost fit within this locus, and have like 9 units, something like that. I may be off on the number of units, but it's a much higher density than the standard lot size currently. So, again, it's speaking to the proposal itself, but it really is under this overlay zone, it really would be a density in keeping with the neighborhood.
Yeah, and I get that, and that's I think that's a true point. My question was really more going to the just overall density, just 7 more units, 7 more sets of cars, etc. But okay, point well taken. Thank you, Pam. Any other questions from the board? I see Dan, no. I don't think Sean, Terrence Abopa, I'm not hearing. Okay. Very good. What else, Matt?
Great. If there's no more questions on this, the other individual we have waiting online is Cliff Schwang from the school department, and he may have 1 or 2 other folks with him. The budget is in the warrant tonight. In lieu of doing a full budget presentation, Cliff offered to be on the call tonight in case you had any questions. I think they got to a place with the finance committee, just by way of quick introduction, that the finance committee, I believe, is happy with the number that they came down to, which is the 3.08%. So I did drop some of their budget documents in your packet. I wasn't going to bring you through the full presentation or ask them to do a full presentation unless the board specifically asked for it this year. So I did want to just give the board the opportunity to ask Cliff. I see Sarah McGinley on the line as well, to talk to them about their budget if you had any questions, or if you want them to come back for a more formal presentation at your next meeting.
So we can talk about that for the next meeting. I'll speak then, let the rest of the board speak. I'm pleased that directionally, I think it's going in the right direction. I think they made great efforts. I personally think that's it's good for the town. It's good for the schools. So basically, that's a thank you. But maybe my fellow board members have different views they wish to espouse. So I'm going to let them speak, and then we'd certainly let Cliff speak since he waited all this time graciously. If he wants to say a few words, that would be great. But let's just jump through this board first. Sean, any comments in particular?
No, I mean, I also want to thank the schools. I know you and me, Paul, were in the fiscal planning coordinating committee, and I do appreciate the effort to get down to 3.08. I know it's still a bit higher than the guideline, but it's, definitely better than the last couple of years.
Yep. Amen. Thank you, Sean. Dan, anything from you?
Yeah, I want to applaud with a difficult process. I really appreciate the back and forth of the finance committee. You guys got to a great place. There were difficult decisions that were made. And I think we all saw that, which is wonderful. So keep up the good work.
Okay. Thank you, Dan. Terrence, anything from you, sir?
Same. Keep up the good work.
Okay. And finally, Bopa?
Same as everyone else.
Okay. Does either Cliff or Madam Chair of the school committee wish to speak at all, or will you just take the laudits and move on? Up to you.
Yeah, I just made them both allowed to talk.
Okay.
So, and Sarah has her hand raised.
Oh, no,
You can both speak.
thanks. No, I'll pause. You said I'll take the thank yous and move on. So thank you for all of your work getting us there. I think we're in a good place. So
Likewise. I think it was a good team. Yeah. Thank you, Sarah. Madam Chair. Does Cliff, do you wish to speak, or are you good?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
All right. Thank you sincerely.
I see Dan does have his hand back up.
Up, Dan.
Yeah, just surprising. No, I'm just regarding the special ed stabilization fund. Can you remind us what the plan is for this year expenditure and next year expenditure, not funding, but expenditure?
Yes.
Anybody can answer that question? Yeah.
Yes. So at the last, excuse me, at the last quarter two update in January, we were projecting a $200,000, maybe $217,000 deficit thus far, which would require a draw on the stabilization fund, which we had approved at a $350,000 level. That said, literally a few hours ago, we got some very good news on two particular cases, so we may not need it. As we've said, ad nauseum, the special ed realm is very volatile in both directions. So we get some ups, we get some downs. So I haven't been able to crunch the numbers with the team yet, but we're looking at a lower draw as of at least a few hours ago on fiscal 26. For fiscal 27, the current budget projects, I believe, a $490,000 draw, which is obviously less than ideal. However, as I explained to the committee, both the finance committee and the school committee, we are actively pursuing a number of state and other funding sources, some of which weren't actually known until after the final budget documents were put together. So we are already aware that the governor is proposing full funding of circuit breaker transportation, which should bring in another $100,000. We also are being very conservative in terms of tuition credits that we anticipate we would likely get from our two special education collaboratives. And I am working with the Executive Office of Education and the legislature on some additional funding for out-of-district special ed that's unique to the circumstances of Bedford. We did not include those assumptions in the budget because that still relies on some additional legislative action. But I'm actively working on that and anticipate having some more news to share, hopefully sometime in March. So we're cautiously optimistic that the need to draw on the stabilization fund should be much lower than is currently embedded in the current budget proposal, but we won't know all of that until later this spring.
Great. And then that'll be a joint vote, us and you, to spend that money, if I'm not mistaken, Sarah McGinley, correct?
Yes, so we didn't have to touch because we went the other route to do a finance committee reserve last year, we didn't actually touch the stabilization fund. If we need it to close out the fiscal year for fiscal 26 this year, instead of going to the finance committee for a reserve fund transfer, we would plan to go to the school committee would vote, and then we would bring it to the select board for their approval on doing a withdrawal from the stabilization fund.
Okay, thank you. Thanks,
Yep.
Paul.
Okay, excellent.
Just to confirm, did you say 490, Cliff? I have 450 in the current warrant, and the warrant should have worst case scenario. Hoping you don't have to spend it all.
Oh.
But if
Yeah,
490
let's confirm that off on we need to make sure we do have a $300,000. I'm sorry if my video is supposed to be on and it's not showing. I don't know what's happening.
You're fine.
Okay. We are there should be a warrant article for a $300,000 addition to bring it up to the max, sort of from free cash. But I believe our current plan was we should probably round it up to 500,000 to be safe, if that's the authorizing language for a withdrawal within fiscal 27 of up to. But let's confirm that offline. Let me just make sure I have that number, and I'll text it to you or email it to you.
Okay. No,
Okay.
no, thank you.
Thanks.
Okay.
Okay. What else, Matt, on as far as you're concerned, do we have for the warrant? And then I'll flip it to the board members if they have anything they want to call out.
The only other thing would be, I guess, Alethea AC is still on if anyone had questions regarding the historic preservation article. But other than that, I don't believe there's any other staff or presentations prepared tonight. It would just be us going through, voting to close the warrant, place the articles, close the warrant.
So,
yeah.
Paul, you're muted. Is he?
Paul?
He's frozen. Oh, back. Okay.
No, but
Paul,
he's
can
talking,
you
but
hear
he's
us?
muted.
received on the
You
Hey,
were
Paul?
mute. We can't hear you.
We
Really?
can hear you now, but for the last 20 seconds, you were muted. It didn't show you were
Interesting.
muted, but we couldn't hear you.
Wow. Okay. I was really brilliant and pithy with the last 20 seconds. Okay. Let me start again. The notwithstanding the good work of the Historic Preservation Commission, I would recommend we pull that credit. I think now's not the time to be giving away money. Two, and more importantly, is I think the intent is to keep a portion of housing that's more modest than the 1 point something million houses, and I don't think that will be the effect of it. I think the effect will be it's now opened up to houses that were built, I forget the year, I think it would be 1943 and before. I think you're gonna have a lot of houses that are not historic, where a builder can come in and do a pseudo tear down and take advantage of the credit. So you could have two houses sold side by side, one that was an empty lot selling for, let's call it 2 million. The second is a house that was a ranch that got the pseudo tear down, still sold for 2 million, but it's going to have a tax credit available for it. And I see no reason why that tax credit should be given. If the thing were, I think there are other ways to, incent more modest housing. I don't think this is a way. So I don't think we should put it before a town meeting. I think it could go through for whatever, reasons, and it would be, again, a boon to a developer for no good reason. So I would just ask any committee member before I let Lee speak what they think of that.
Is that true, to confirm that basically, because I had thought that it was just for historic district, but it's
We'll
actually
let Lee
not.
speak to that, but yeah, I think that's the case.
It's homes that are 1940 something or at that point. And then how many homes are there that we're talking about?
we'll see if Lee has an answer for that. At one point, I knew how many possible homes, but that number is not at my fingertips.
Lee, you should be able to speak if you're
Can you
still
hear
with
me?
us.
Can you hear me?
Oh, you're on, Lee. Sorry.
Okay. I don't remember offhand the numbers, but I'm thinking that there's something like 200 that were built before 1900 and 200 that were built before between 1900 and 1943. But I don't see this as being something that will cause people to build huge houses. I've been on the board off and on for quite a few years, and again, we've seen houses, old houses, demolished because they just hadn't been maintained. Now, the wording of this proposed change has been modified so that the tax relief would apply only to the original part of the house. They wouldn't get a break for adding on a big addition to it. And I don't see it as being something where we would lose small houses and turn them into big houses. That's not what it's all about. It's about helping people to preserve their older houses. I mean, what is this town without its older houses? We would be just like any new town anywhere. We're so proud of our history. It makes a lot of Bedford what Bedford is. It's part of the identity of the town, and people cherish that. They like to see the older houses. Especially people who grew up here, they want to see the ones they grew up with. But it's really hard to maintain an older house, and it's key to keep it under repair. Oftentimes, an older house will need major repairs. As the owner of a 1963 ranch house, I can say that it takes a lot to keep even a new house going, so that these older ones, we need to help people who have them so that we don't keep losing them. Again and again, we've had people come before us say, we've got this old house, but it's just in such bad shape, we cannot save it.
So
And this
Lee,
is what
you
it's
would
intended
you
to repair.
they're coming to you because they want to demolish the house?
Yes, they come to us because they want to propose to demolish a house.
And why do
If
they
a
want to
house-
demolish it?
If a house is built before 1943 and it's not in the historic district, it comes before us and it comes under the demolition delay bylaw. Such
Right,
houses like that are in the historic district go before the Historic District Commission.
I guess the point I was making is if they come to you, they want to demolish it and presumably build another house, right?
Yes, there's no other reason they would come before us. But
So they would
no, I should take
presumably,
it back. If they want to demolish a part of the house as well, it would come to us.
right. Presumably they would be motivated to say the reason they want to demolish it is because it's gone so, astray in its upkeep. I mean, that's kind of a natural, right?
That
I mean,
is what
if that's your
happens.
goal, you're going to conjure up the best rationale. That's a rationale they would conjure up. So I don't. Anyway, it's just a point.
So they come before us, and I just lost my train of thought. Just left without me.
Yeah,
But
I guess my point
it's-
is, if you say yes on the demolish based on their judgment, they could then, a developer could turn around and sell it for 2-point-something million, right? Build a new house and develop it to that tune of that kind of money, right?
Yes. If somebody comes now, of course, the demolition delay bylaw comes into this, where we come into it if they say, we have this house, this old house, and we just want to demolish it to put in something big. We can delay them for up to 18 months in hopes that they will see some other way of dealing with it, or maybe they will move the house or something like that. If somebody comes to us and the house is truly in such deplorable state that they can have an engineering firm confirm that it's not salvageable, then we might not put the delay on. And that has happened a number of times if it's just in such bad shape. But if there's any chance of saving it, we want to save it. We want to do what we can So this bylaw, we're hoping that will save some houses from ever getting before us if they can fix up the old house and keep it going.
Okay.
And, you know, if they
Got
have
it.
the incentive of this tax relief, then maybe some of them will do it. That's
Okay.
the goal. And
So-
I think it's
sorry.
going to be very rare that somebody will want to do what you've envisioned all along, that somebody will take a tiny old house, fix it up, tack a huge addition onto it and say, this is the same house. That's not very likely, Paul.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that. And I won't belabor it. I disagree, but I won't belabor it. Any questions from the board? And I'm hearing none. Okay. Lee, thank you so much.
Great. I think,
Thank you.
Great. So Paul, I mean, my recommendation would be to, I don't know if we want to go through place all of the articles first that we've gone through. I don't think we're going to have discussion on much, if
No.
any of them, except for, you know, and then the charter articles, charter and bylaw articles. We've been through them a few times, but
Yep.
I'm happy to follow your lead here. And sorry.
Am I
I'll just say, I
muted?
think there's broad agreement,
Sorry,
I
I'll
guess,
mute you.
that I would ask the board to consider all of these that are on the warrant. I would ask to have the tax credit one not on the warrant. But, you know, it's a play. I don't really feel like beating it to death. I gave my best explanation last time about the example of my mother's house. I just, you know, take it or leave it. I think it's giving away tax money, and I think it incents developers who are going to build a, you know, big house regardless. I'll take any comment on that, because if it's the straw poll is you all disagree with me, I'll just keep quiet. I'm not going to belabor this. Is there any, does anyone see it my way? I hear crickets.
I don't
so
see it.
I
I don't
think-
see it either way. I don't see
Yeah.
it either way, Paul. You know what I mean? I feel like it's both a problem, but also I still don't quite believe the best. And I also think the objective is probably not going to be realized no matter what action we take.
Okay.
So I'm kind of neither here nor there.
And as far as me, I think sometimes I mean, the Historic District Commission definitely put in or Preservation Committee put in a lot of thought, and I know they had pulled it once to respond to some comments. Sometimes with things like this, you gotta put it out there and see what happens, you know, and let's say it's passed and then you analyze it a few years later, is it really meeting the intent? I mean, the intent is admirable. I think it does benefit the
agree with
town.
that.
We can save some of that. So I'd like to see it on the warrant.
Bopa, on or off?
Yeah, I feel like I'm kind of torn because of the fact that I'm not like I do agree with you that you know, with everything going in the like with town and our budget and everything, like I'm concerned. So I don't know, and you know, I actually had just thought it was only a small portion, but then it's like any homes that's 1900 to 1940, you know what I mean? So I'm iffy because I am concerned. I don't like you know, I don't I feel like this I do agree with your statement, as at this point it's like I'm not sure if we want to incentivize developers.
Got it. Dan, if you're just in or out, can you give me, you just to make this easier?
Yeah, if I had to pick one, I'd pick in.
Okay, Terrence?
In.
Okay, so I'm not interested in belaboring it. We'll leave it in. What do you have for us, Matt?
Great. I'll just highlight the two things that have changed since the last meeting. When we ran our final free cash numbers, we were a little over what the finance committee was comfortable with. So we took 3 of the vehicle projects, and we proposing to separate those out as bonding. So rather than 100% free cash, it's going to be about 5.6 million in free cash and a little over $1 million in borrowing now. borrowing that over 10 years. We're able to fund that within our debt service. So just a minor change in the capital plan. Again, all the same projects and dollar amounts, just splitting 3 of them out into borrowing. So that added 1 article. And we updated the PEG budget. And then there was 1 more article in the charter and bylaws. I know I sent the board a quick email on this, but I just want to draw some attention to it because it is an extra article. So this is now in the bylaw section as well as a zoning bylaw. It's something that we've been talking about with the planning director and police chief and code enforcement for about a year. It's a really small change to meet really just the intent of the bylaw. So adding the word uninspected after the word unregistered. So the idea behind this this language is currently in the general bylaws, and it might be easier if I scroll up to that. Actually, no, it's late. I don't want to belabor the point. This language regarding what you can store in your yard, 1 trailer, boat, unregistered motor vehicle. What we found is there's a few properties that are getting around the unregistered part by registering what are essentially junk vehicles. Even though they are vehicles that can never be inspected. So by adding the word unregistered or uninspected, it ensures that you don't have a junkyard in a residential neighborhood, essentially. That's it added a new article in order to do that because at the recommendation of code and planning, it's the strongest position for the town if you have it in both the general bylaws and the zoning bylaws. Those are the only 2 changes. Obviously, we talked about the cottage overlay district already. Great. So at this point, the board may want to close the place the 34 articles that are currently on here and close the warrant. And then I don't know if we want to go back to the charter language and have one more quick conversation about that, or if we want to work on that over the next 2 weeks and really finalize the warrant at your next meeting. I can certainly get a draft posted if we at least place all the articles today.
So let me say that I think you have an idea of where the board wants to go on the charter ones. I think it would be good to have you, I'll work with you, finalize those to represent what the board looks where it's going, and then present it for the next meeting if that's still timely.
Sure. Yep.
Does that make sense?
I think it makes sense to not finalize it until we have the final language, just so we know everyone's happy with it. Because good thing getting everything digital now, and there's only a little over 100 households that have signed up for the hard copy. We can get a draft version of the warrant. I know it's in your packet, but posted on the town meeting page, as early as tomorrow, and people can start reviewing it. So for tonight, could we just place the 34 articles on and close the warrant? So we're going to say there's no more warrant articles that could be added after today. We want to do that?
I think we can do that.
Let's do that.
Yeah. Do we have a motion for that?
So moved.
Second.
Paul's a yes. Sean?
Yes.
Hopa?
Aye.
Dan?
Yes.
Terrence?
Yes.
Okay.
Great. And given the late hour, do we want to just do all the recommendations at your next meeting?
100%.
Okay.
I do have a question. Article 13, is that still going to go through? Because I thought we effectively put in the funding that was being asked for with that. That concerns the energy sustainability consultant, right?
Yeah, town council has concerns over how it's written, but the moderator said he would entertain a motion on the floor to have it withdrawn. It's his opinion that we shouldn't, in our general practice is to not make changes after it's been submitted, even if the petitioner themselves asks. We had talked about if they had enough folks who had signed the petition rescind their votes, but they got way more than the 10 signatures that were needed. So we would have had to get a lot of folks to come to town hall and sort of withdraw their signatures from the petition. So the easiest thing is to leave it on the warrant, but have someone make a motion to withdraw and definitely postpone as soon as we get to it.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
Mhm.
What's next, Matt?
We closed the warrant, just the consent agenda.
Could I ask
Okay.
that we separate those two items? I can't vote on the Railroad Ave easement.
Sure, two
Let's
separate votes is
separate 'em.
fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll move the railroad ave easement then.
I'll second it.
Oh.
So Paul's in favor. Yes. Sean,
Yes.
Volpa,
Aye.
Terrence, you're going to, I assume, abstain. And Dan?
I'm a yes, and might want to take Alethea off the payroll list,
Yeah.
please. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay. So that's a 401. In next one. Motion to move the remaining consent agenda, or do we have to spell it out?
I
Oh, you can just.
No,
approve the minutes.
I move the rest of the consent agenda.
I'll
second.
second that.
Second by Volpa. Paul is a yes. Sean?
Yes.
Volpa?
Aye.
Terrence?
Aye.
And Dan?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Next, Matt.
Liaison reports.
I am going to take a pass on that tonight. Volpa?
I just had the community media committee, and they presented tonight already. I wasn't here last week to share it, but my apologies for missing the meeting last week
Okay.
or 2 weeks ago.
Got it. Dan?
ESC meets on Thursday, and my MAPC meeting is next week. Nothing current to report that has already happened.
Okay. Terrence?
Fire station building committee was supposed to meet today. The meeting was canceled. We're supposed to have a tour. The tour was canceled because of snow.
Okay.
That's all I have.
Okay. Anything else, Terrence?
Nope.
Sean, last but not least.
I actually don't have anything. School vacation week last week, and none of my committees met.
Excellent. With that, I think we have the motion of the evening, right, Matt?
Correct.
I move motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second.
Okay, Paul's a yes. Sean?
Yes.
Volpa?
Aye.
Terrence?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
Excellent work, one and all. Okay. Have a nice night. Go
Enjoy
straight
everyone.
ahead.
this ongoing snow.
Thanks a lot. Thanks, Matt.
Yep. Bye-bye.